Boy oh boy, did I receive something cool in the mail today, and this box right here is a GTX 1080 Ti from XLR8. Now I will admit in the past that brand, which is kind of like PNY's gaming division, has struggled with their cards' looks. You expect them to look about as powerful as they are, right? 1060s look decent, 1070s look even better, and 1080s top of the line look absolutely dope. I don't know why it scales like that, but it does. So I've decided to do an unboxing / first impression segment in the beginning of this video to validate XLR8's claims that this is their best card to date in terms of looks, also in terms of performance. It is a 1080 Ti after all. So let's unbox this thing and see if what they told me is true or not. And yes, if you're wondering, this is an i3-7350K. Yes, it is also my box opener. It's a stupid processor. It should be used for nothing other than to open boxes. Here is the card, GTX 1080 Ti. The i3-7350K also works as an excellent plastic unwrapper. Can confirm. Okay, are we ready for this? The moment of truth. Just how good does this card look? It's really all about looks at this point. We all know how powerful GTX 1080s are. So I just want to see how good. Wow. Wow. That is incredibly small, which is super cool. Wow, I cannot get over how tiny this card is. It's so small, which is super cool because most 1080 Ti's are extremely thick, at least with these aftermarket coolers on them. They're usually 2.5 slot cards and they're super thick. You know, they extend out past the PCIe slot quite a ways, but this card it's literally, it fits the form factor of the PCB perfectly, save the little extension it hangs over just a bit more, which is perfectly fine for cooling purposes. Now look, by this point we all know how powerful GTX 1080 Ti's are. The XLR8 version brings nothing unique to the table in that respect. But what I do want to do is differentiate some of the qualities that blower style cards have that these cards get rid of. One of those obviously is sound, the other is actually frequency. With NVIDIA's new dynamic frequency controller that's just built into these cards, you'll find that as temperatures approach 80-85 degrees Celsius with blower style cards, those frequencies, those core frequencies, and even memory in some very rare cases will be adjusted accordingly, meaning that they'll drop those frequencies just ever so slightly to keep those temperatures in check from exceeding a certain limit. So 85 degrees Celsius was the barrier for the PNY 1080 Ti. This card didn't even get close to 80-85 degrees Celsius. In fact, it stayed below 70 degrees Celsius while running Unigen's superposition benchmark. So apart from the extreme difference in sound, the difference right here, we also have to account for the frequency fluctuation found in the PNY blower style card. It's unique to blower style cards for the most part, unless you plan on overclocking. You'll find that if you do overclock the XLR8 version, which you could probably get a few, maybe 100 megahertz or so out of it if you wanted to overclock. It is a reference PCB though, so keep that in mind. You're not going to have the extra power needed to perhaps overclock to around 2000 or 2100 megahertz. You still might find those temperatures rising past that threshold at a certain point, and in which case you would notice that frequency being adjusted ever so slightly. So we saw that the PNY card was around 1850 megahertz, and then that dropped to a little below 1800 megahertz when the temperature approached 85 degrees Celsius. Again, none of that occurred on the XLR8 version, which is great news for anyone who just wants to pull the card out of the box, plug it in, and never have to worry about it again. Now, I do want to say a few more things regarding XLR8's design choice for their 1080 Ti. I make no secret of my opinion in this case. I think this card is one of the best looking cards ever produced, period. And I was not paid to say that. I wasn't persuaded to say that. I received another 1080 Ti from PNY and I thought it looked okay. I didn't think it looked excellent. It had an old school vibe to it, and some people were for it, some people weren't. But in this case, it looks like the future, and it looks compact, it looks quiet, and that's exactly what this card brings to the table. I'm a huge fan of the metal sheen on top. I love how it's not too colorful. It's got subtle hints of red in it, which is cool, but if you don't like the red, no worries. Unless you're juxtaposing your card upright, you won't see the red at all. It's just black and silver, which means that it'll match pretty much anything in your PC, so no worries about color coordination in this case. Another thing I should mention, there are no LEDs in this card whatsoever. None in the fans, none in front where the GTX logo is. There aren't any, period. And I actually am okay with this. You know, there are so many RGB LED cards out there, even just cards that have, I don't know, white accent LEDs. I'm just I'm kind of sick and tired of it at this point. You know, I look at cards like these and I'm like, okay, well, if I want it to light up, I can just put an LED strip in my case. Apart from that, though, the card itself is just going to do what it needs to do, and that's about it. I don't need it to light up. I don't need it to be, seen from 10 miles away. This card is subtle, but it's powerful, and if that's your vibe, this is the card for you. Now, the last thing I did was take this card apart. I wanted to see what was on the inside other than what I could see through the fans here. I wanted to see how they were cooling the VRMs, how they were cooling the VRAM. All of that was just, it's kind of in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, well, they're getting great temperatures, but let's see why, especially considering how thin this card actually is. I was pleasantly surprised to find dedicated heat sinks where they should be, as well as thermal pads lining the perimeter of the GPU. This is where your VRAM exists. So this card was built well, it was built to last, and it was also built to keep things extremely cool. If you ask me, this is one of the best looking GTX 1080 Ti's money can buy, but it will not be the best overclocker, which means that it will not be the best performer. So while you might not scrape out those extra 5 to 10 FPS in games, granted you'll probably be gaming in well over 100 FPS anyway, this is still a great card to consider. As always, you can find it linked in the video description. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, thumbs down for the opposite, click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us.